I'd love some of your perspective, what you've seen in the industry, particularly around fitting.
Yeah.
'Cause fitting was always something that was an absolute afterthought. When I
Yeah.
started, it was just like, oh yeah, boom, 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 and to up for us now. So what do you give us just a couple of minutes of how you've seen, if I say the umbrella word of bike fitting,
Mhm.
how's that evolved?
Yeah, I think to your point, when you hang around long enough, you kind of see the whole arc, and I think I've seen the progression. When I started at bike shops, bike fitting was as simple as, can you stand over the bike? Can you lift it up? Do you have clearance? You know, hold the bike while somebody pedals backwards to get saddle height. I think what happened with higher end bikes, and especially with custom bikes, there became this influx of bike shops that wanted to sell higher end product. And the perception was that if we have to sell this product, we need expertise to do so. And so, in a funny way, bike fitting kind of became the hot topic. A lot of people did it. Specialized doubled down. They had a whole program for doing bike fitting.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of shops started to dabble in it. They bought retool systems. They bought motion capture systems, whatever the brand was. And in a funny way, I think it was a kind of a stamp of validation, like, oh, we do that.
Yeah.
We have that equipment over there. But the reality was, I think what I saw in practice was they would just basically say, well, we have that. And if you want to spend X amount of dollars on it, but you know what? We have Fred, and Fred rides a lot. And, we can have Fred just put you on the trainer and, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah,
quick
and
dial,
eyeball it.
kind of eyeball you. And, he rides a lot. And because I think fundamentally what I've learned is that bike fitting doesn't necessarily jibe within the realm of the traditional bike shop. Because if I come along and say, hey, this bike is perfect, except I'd love it if it had a shorter crank, or I'd love it to have a different width handlebar, the bike manager's coming over and saying, hey, Chris,
It's just a hassle.
what are you doing here?
You're creating hassle and
Right.
expense. Yeah.
Like, I was about to sell this bike, and now you come in and you say these changes. And so I think in a funny way, it's kind of run the whole arc. Everybody was involved in bike fitting. Everybody wanted to get involved with bike fitting. It was done at the myriad of levels of very high end to very rudimentary and everything in between. Now I kind of laugh. I feel a bit like the butcher. I feel a bit like everybody has kind of gone away. And there's not as many shops doing it. And I think the ones that are doing it generally do a pretty good job. I think there's still some, hey, let's just put you on a trainer. But ultimately, like, I'm getting more and more referrals from other bike shops. They just don't want to deal with it. They don't want to buy the equipment. They bought the equipment. Nobody uses it. So I think we're in a fun spot. And I think bike fitters, as a general rule, specifically when they're detached from a store, we just have a different perspective on the industry. We're trying to
Yeah.
do what's right by the athlete. We're not making judgments about, whether this crank is ideal or not. It's like, we're just trying to help the athlete, put them in a good spot where they can succeed.
You also have freedom because you're not tied to a particular shop brand.
Yeah.
And so for you, you don't have to say, okay, we really want to try and sell X, Y, Z because that's what we carry.
Yeah.
And so there's less ulterior motive that's driving you so far as you can actually go genuinely athlete first.
Yeah. I had a funny moment in my career where I was I was basically asked to come in and do some fit work within this. I won't name the brand, but within this brand, and you know it was great, except like you could only sell their stuff. And I was like, well, what happens if we want to use a different tri saddle? Well, you can't do that. I was like,
Yeah.
well, then, and very quickly I was like, well, then we're not doing bike fitting.
Yeah.
We're doing, captured audience sales. We've dumbed it down to using things that you sit on and as a predictor for saddles. And the bike industry, I often joke, I've done this for a long period of time. I've dealt with a myriad of shops. I've done everything from own my own shop, own my own fit studio, done everything in between. The bike industry is lightning. It likes the path of least resistance. It likes it to be quick, simple. It's the fries with us,
Yeah.
fries with that. And I just think that so many athletes desire and want a deeper conversation.
When we frame these, because I want to get into the questions and the meat and potatoes of
Yeah.
the meat and potatoes,
Taters.
but I want to frame the lens finally, and hopefully I've got my list right. But when I think about you, and I think it's important for the audience to really cement this in who you are and what your role is, because we've talked a lot about fitting, but really you do many things to help
Yeah.
athletes. I can just think of the athletes that actually we've had in the center for the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And let me list them off, and then you tell me what I've missed here. But there's There's sort of in it fitting to optimize, obviously, power, speed, everything else. There's fitting to actually solve challenges. So people that are very uncomfortable, got hotspots underneath, et cetera, et cetera. There's aerodynamic work, so looking to try and get as slippery as you can to get the
Yeah.
biggest speed returns. You consult a lot on equipment choices. We talked about different widths, handlebars, cranks, etc. So someone if is buying a
Yeah.
bike, making sure they're buying a bike that is genuinely like a glove that they can fall in love with, not just aesthetically, but
Yeah.
actually usability. Um, you go through the end-to-end bike fit process. Now, see, it comes back to the agnostic approach.
Yeah.
You have great relationships in the industry. You can go and source any bike. You can, as many of my athletes have experienced, deliver the bike, fit the bike wherever
Yeah.
the person is.
Yeah.
In fact, all over the world. You've been
Yeah.
all over the world with that.
I have.
Um, you got footbeds and things like that. So that there's a multitude. Is what am I missing there? Are some of the stuff that you
Yeah,
work on?
I think mostly, you've covered a lot of it. I think a big part of it is like, look, let's just make great decisions. Let's make very good choices. And let's understand that the choices for a certain individual might be very different than sometimes the athlete who referred them in. I'll get that call sometimes like, hey, you sold so and so this handlebar setup. How come you sold me the other one? Well, you're different. You have different needs and the bikes are different. And I think there's a beauty in that. And and sometimes it is a little bit, maybe if there's a strain, it's that it is a little bit more of a discussion. It's not a simple stamp. It's not everybody gets the same thing,
Yeah.
which to me is a bit of, whether it's crank arm length, everybody in the bike industry loves these simple answers. Oh, everybody's doing this. Everybody's doing that. Everybody should be on a shorter crank. No, everybody shouldn't. But there's are instances where it makes sense.
Even your consultations that you do remotely. I don't think I've ever known you to do a consultation where someone just buys a block of time and you say, see you later. There's always a process there, isn't there? It's
Yeah.
iterative.
And I've learned, I mean, I've done probably over 300 of those in my career. And it's really a recent thing. It came out of all the craziness of COVID where it was a bit of a necessity. I think what I learned in that, whether I'm working with a client from Dubai or China or Georgia or Seattle, um, there just is a lot of, I wouldn't even say it's bad information. I think it's just kind of formulaic. Everybody just gets on the same path of everything is the same. And really to deep dive into what an individual needs and to help them in that space is super, super fun. And I've enjoyed it. I've learned in that, and it's one of the first things I say to whatever athlete I'm working with. Look, the outcome is the most important thing. So whether that takes us 4 sessions or 2 sessions, or if you just want to sit and talk for an hour about what wheels to buy, I'm good with all of it. I'm not gonna, hey, our time is up.
Yeah.
You've paid and you have to go. The outcome to me, if we don't achieve that, it's kind of a fail. And I think what's been surprising in that space has been A, the amount I've been able to do, and B, how much you're able to help people.
Well, it's funny. It's, when you, part of my job as a coach is I see it as being a filter. So a filter of information to try and
Mm.
diffuse out some of the blizzard of nonsense out there or the blizzard of bullshit, as I call it. And I rely on a lot of people who are experts in field. And one of the big thing is number one, they really know what they're talking about. Number two, and I always think of you when I say this, are they not going to bullshit you?
Yeah.
Are they not going to try and sell you something you don't need? Are they dedicated on getting the right ultimate solution for you? Whether that's not the easy path and whatever it
Yeah.
is. I remember you talking to me about a lot of the brands that are direct to consumer. It's like, great, if you want that brand, many of them are not bad bikes, but they have something like a 30% return rate
Oh
on
yeah.
them, and incredibly high because you're buying something that doesn't quite fit. So let's go through the process with you first, invest in it up front, make sure it's the right width of handlebar, crank, and everything else that is going to fit you. It's the right bike for you. So that when you hit purchase, you've got something that you go, "Ah,"
Yeah.
and it's like the best
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah.
And you can't get that from a shop, many shops. It's the
No.
truth.
And I think my perspective of having been lucky enough in my career to sell a lot of bikes in that way, where it's frame up builds, it's choose every part, it's customized frames across the myriad. When you have that moment where that athlete gets on the bike, I mean, I had an athlete turn to me the other day and he said, I just didn't know this was possible.
Yeah.
I just assumed that riding a bike meant lots of hurt, lots of pain. We've had at the center, the stories of of people bleeding and
Yeah.
trauma and pain, and kind of like, oh, I just thought that was part of it. And I think it's a bit of what happens when the knowledge gets a little bit too general, and we don't do a great job in that space and with a lot of the industry.
Well, there is truth that when people come to my bike class, there is a lot of blood, there is a lot of trauma.
Well, I mean,
It
I
is
hear
very painful.
I hear the yelling.
I'm brutal.
Yeah,
But outside
I
of
hear the
yeah,
yelling for
outside
sure.